Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I have a trio of candles for you today from Bath and Body Works. So Bath and Body Works put out several kind of mini collections first of the year or immediately after the semi-annual sale, as they usually do. And interestingly enough, they did not do the immediate tropical push until kind of late February sometime. Usually they just spring right with the tropical. This time they kind of held back on it and gave us some interesting like florals and herbals and various other kinds of things that we would kind of expect to see more in March and April. So they kind of jumped the gun on that and then gave us the big tropical push afterwards. So several little mini collections, and one of them that was a little underhyped, especially given how gorgeous it was, is what I'm calling this kind of William Morris collection. So it's William Morris because this like tapestry kind of thing that's on the front of all of these is just very William Morris-esque. And since they don't cite William Morris here, because there's a very big like William Morris organization association, and they own the rights to all of William Morris's like tapestry designs. And I'm sure that they wouldn't be allowed to put it on their candle unless they had like permission. And since there's no William Morris citations or references here on the jar, I'm going to assume that this is heavily inspired by William Morris. It's just really lush and lovely, and they work so well. So basically they came out in these like green color. I think this is the same green color with like two different like little like painting things here. And then they had two like coral colored ones like this. So it was a mini collection of 4, and they were all kind of like green botanical herbal, and they just worked so well. I love, if you can't do colored wax, this tinted is so pretty. And there was just something so expensive looking about these, as well as kind of like greenhousey a little bit. It's got a hammered kind of copper lid. They were really, really stunning. And oh no, never mind. I was gonna say, since they're not a wraparound, they should be $24.95, but instead they are $26.95. So I don't know if that's because this year Bath & Body Works is just calling everything $26.95, or if the care on the tinted wax and the copper lids are enough to move it up to that $26.95 price point. I don't really know, but I think it's fine. So anyway, this was the William Morris collection. There were 4 of them. The green ones are this one, Bergamot Birch. I don't know why my camera is not. Oh, come on. How do you get it to focus? Please focus. Please focus. It will not focus. I think I have changed the settings in it somehow accidentally, and it's really messed up now. Bergamot and Birch was what you were just looking at. Not to be confused with, was it Bergamot and Balsam? Or Balsam Bergamot or something like that? Not to be confused with that other candle, and I was confused by it initially. The other green one is Greenhouse Fern, and I do have that one here to talk about, and I did burn that one. The coral orangish ones were Lavender and Vetiver. If I put them together, will they kind of focus? Let's see. Kind of. Lavender and Vetiver, and then the one that I don't have is the apple one, and I want to say it's like Blue Orchard Skies or something like this. Blue Orchard Skies was an apple fragrance that came out as the second like designer or designer collection. It was the second one. So the first one didn't, I don't think, have any new candles. They were all repackages, but they just highlighted the various different like designers and developers. And then the second one did have a couple new candles in it, one was like a beachy palm one, and the other one was Blue Orchard Skies. And I didn't think that any of them were really anything to write home about. even the tropical one, which is really up my alley. The apple one was nice, but it just seemed super faint and kind of generic, you know? And then I watched, it was one of those rare videos that Josh Touch the Fire Twice did. He picked them all up because he, like me, likes those like designer ones. The developer, you know which ones I'm talking about. He picked up the apple one, and he did admit that he would not have picked these candles out, and he would not have bought them except that he wanted to like feature and honor and support this particular series. And that was enough for me, because that's kind of the impression I was getting too, is that apple one wasn't really that great. Anyway, it's back and it's in this collection, and once again I did not buy it, but I did buy the 3 of these. And for a while I wasn't going to, because I was a little underwhelmed, as stunning as the packaging is. Greenhouse Fern was the only one that I thought about getting, because I really liked like the floral botanical green element that I was getting. I thought they were all 3 more faint than they should be, much more weak than they should be. And as we now know, having gone through the first quarter of the year with Bath & Body Works, a lot of their candles this first quarter have not performed and have been very uncharacteristically weak in terms of strength and throw. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's intentional, like they just need an off year and they've decided this is their off year. Maybe they just needed an off quarter. I don't know. I mean, they didn't phone it in with the packaging, but they're definitely phoning it in terms of performance. And I think we all hope that it's just a very temporary thing and not something that continues. So anyway, yeah, it seemed a little faint for me, but then they were having one of those big sales and I was like, oh, I'll get it. One of you even recommended to me not only Lavender and Vetiver, but also Bergamot and Birch, which I had no intention of getting because I had it confused with the more recent Bergamot Balsam candle that came out, I believe, in the Neutrals line in the late fall of last year, I think, something like that. It came out at the same time as the Wild Berry and Ube candle, which was much better. The Bergamot and Balsam one, I couldn't understand it. It was vaguely soapy. It wasn't even a good balsam. It was men's cologne-y, but it was like no good version of either cologne or soapy or balsam. And so it just came across as kind of like a little bit of a bad Pine Sol that a man might also want to spray himself with if he likes the Axe body spray genre, if that makes sense. Not a great candle, and I should say, disclaimer, I did not buy it, I did not burn it. But anyway, so fast on its heels, I assumed that they repackaged it here, because it's like the BB with the birch and the bergamot. I just assumed it was bergamot and balsam. Not. So anyway, one of you was like, oh, try bergamot and birch because I really think you're gonna like it. It's a lot of the things you like. And you were right. But unfortunately, it was very weak. Okay, so let's start out with Bergamot and Birch, which in my opinion was the most lovely of the 3 and the one that I would repurchase. I don't know that I would repurchase the other 2 at all. So Bergamot and Birch, I burned this one all the way down to the wick clips, and it really burned like a dream in terms of the burn quality for sure. And even now, it smells incredible. I mean, there's like no sooting to speak of, no carbon residue. I mean, it's as fresh a fragrance now as it was when I smelled it cold off the top, which is always a wonderful thing to see. So the notes on Bergamot and Birch, which I assume has been around for quite some time at Yankee or at Bath & Body Works, but tell me if I'm wrong about that. The notes are vibrant bergamot, black amber, birchwood. So birch, amber, bergamot. I mean, on paper, it just looks like a men's cologne. Formulaic, right? But it's actually much more fresh. And it's really light on the amber. They did not go heavy on it. And therefore, it doesn't come across as a cliched men's cologne. Yes, the bergamot here is not particularly, it says vibrant, but I wouldn't say it's particularly fresh or vibrant or authentically juicy. It's much more of a bergamot oil that you would associate with like a premium perfume or cologne fragrance. And the birch notes tend to have kind of a little bit of a musky element to them. Birch actually is used often in conjunction with leather. They will use birch oil to like cure leather products because it smells so similar to like a leather. It's very like musky and funky like that. And so that and the bergamot, which lightens everything up. I mean, it doesn't take it to like a fresh, juicy, citrusy place, but it just kind of like lets the light in and keeps it from being like a basey kind of fragrance. Surprisingly bright and fresh for it being an amber and birch candle with bergamot oil. And just a vague soapiness, but here it's actually a beautiful soapiness that again contributes to that light, fresh, and bright kind of ruggedness. So it's a rugged candle, and even more of a masculine leaning candle that also just opens itself up to all of this amazing brightness and lightness. And in that sense is a very balanced fragrance and really a delightfully clean one. Yeah? When they say that like a men's cologne is like fresh and clean, this is the best version of it. And is so fresh that you might actually categorize it more as a botanical than or a rugged candle than you would a personal fragrance or a perfume conceptual, which is probably what it is. But it just has such heavy like botanical overtones to it that you might categorize it as botanical. It's really lovely, and I would definitely repurchase this one. I think it's a lovely fragrance. It's a little bit of a palate cleanser, but is also assertive in its own way. Oh yeah, and it still smells great, and the burn quality was fantastic on this. Unfortunately, let the other shoe drop now. Unfortunately, it did not do well at all in the open concept. I could not get it to perform at all. It's just too weak. It's way too weak. In the bedroom, it did a lot better. But by a lot better, I mean it was like a 3 to a 4. That's not much better. It was a 3 to a 4, I would say, for the first 2 hours that you burn it. I noticed though, and especially because it can burn for quite some time and you don't have to worry about that sooting and you don't have to worry about the carbon residue, which is fantastic. Because usually with the Bath & Body, there's a lot of Bath & Body Works candles that you have to be like 2 hours, gotta blow it out. It's gonna go crazy, right? This one, thank God, is such a great burn. You can let it go for a long time. And if you burn it for past that 2 hour mark, I could get it up to a soft 5 or a soft 6. It was buildable. It was a buildable fragrance, but you did have to let it burn for quite some time. Within the first, 2, even 3 hours on it, it was really kind of coming in at like a 3 or a 4, which is not great. I mean, at that point, it really is kind of like guest bathroom kind of strength and throw, but I was glad to see that it was buildable, and it's such a lovely bedroom fragrance. It is. I mean, it would be a lovely guest bathroom fragrance too, but I think it just works so well for the bedroom. I just do. So I'm really hoping that it comes back in some stronger iteration. If it's been out before in your recent memory, has it been stronger than this? Or are we just having like a really bad quarter? But it's not indicative. I'm hoping it's not indicative of how it performs across the board. I do recommend Bergamot Birch, but please adjust your expectations about how strong this candle is. The strongest candle of the bunch was this one, which was Greenhouse Fern right here. And it's the one that I was the most excited about, although I can't say that I was excited about any one of them. I just got them on a good deal and they were so beautiful. Okay, so the notes on Greenhouse Fern, is this a new candle? Are Lush Bergamot again, violet leaves, and jasmine blooms. Unfortunately, this one burned pretty bad. I don't know if you can tell through the tinted glass there the amount of discoloration. This got puny wicks, conked out, but what's even more is I can hardly tell the fragrance from all the soot and all of the carbon bullshit, which is just not good. I mean, at that point, really well before this point was the point of no return, where I would have needed to have put it in a crock to have saved the fragrance, and I don't have a crock here at home. I need to bring it from my work office because I've been burning more at home. But I blew past that point, and it just can't be burned nicely at this point. I am happy to say that Lavender Vetiver, which is this one right here, burned much closer to the Bergamot and Birch one in terms of how clean it burned. I would say that the Bergamot and Birch was a little bit cleaner than this one, but this went down to the wick clips, and it was, you can still smell it. It's not overwhelmed with, like, you know, carbon residue. This greenhouse fern, it burned very badly, and the fragrance was just subtle enough that it just couldn't stand up to any amount of carbon. If this one had started sooting, it would have been even worse, because this one's even weaker than the greenhouse fern. So I was just very happy that we didn't have any of that, because there's no way that that fragrance could have stood up to it. So compared to the Bergamot and Birch, this one is in fact quite floral, but I would say it's kind of a green floral. And maybe I'm just being swayed by the power of suggestion of the green glass, you know, and the greenhouse, and the fact that a fern is just very green and not very floral. But for me, I would call it a green botanical. So the bergamot in here, and it says violet leaves as opposed to violet blossoms, which is making me think that there is a strong, like, green leaf vine kind of element in this. And the bergamot is a little bit fresher and citrusier than this one. This one is more of a bergamot oil, like a refined oil that you would use in a perfume. This bergamot here is a little bit more juicy, a little bit more fruity, and it sits up there with the floral a little bit more. But yeah, like I said, it has a great deal of a green component. For me, it's mid-range. It's a nice mid-range candle, and it's not running away with what is really comes across as kind of a white floral. Oh, jasmine. There you go. Yeah. It's a nice candle. I will say this. I liked it better on cold than I did burning. Upon it being burned, you know what it started smelling like? It started smelling a little like green aloe, a little bit. And so whatever the green note is in here, I don't know if it's a true leaf kind of note, or if it's just kind of like a vague aquatic green note that really came across more like aloe. And caveats apply here. I burned all the way through that Yankee Aloe and Agave, which was a fantastic candle, but took me like 3 weeks of burning it every single day. And then I burned the Kringle candle, the green leaf candle, which was another very strong aloe herbal kind of candle, right? And that one took me another 3 weeks burning it every single day. So by the time I got to this one, I was like over it with aloe. I don't know that I'm really an aloe person, but I don't mind it, and I think it's actually quite nice. And both of those candles were very good. They were very strong. They were very pleasant. They were just great candles. They made them best no candles. But I think I was just kind of exhausted. I had like aloe fatigue at that point. And so when this one started to smell like aloe back there, I was like, no, we're getting off this bus. I didn't appreciate it. I just didn't want another aloe candle. That caveat down, if it wasn't that, and it wasn't just fatigue, this was a strange candle. It was definitely the strongest one of these two. In the open concept, it didn't do particularly well, but you could get it up to a 5, a 5.5, perhaps even a 6 in the open concept. It's not great, but it had a presence. In the back bedroom, it did a whole lot better, as you can imagine, but it was really kind of coming in at an overwhelming 7. And 7 shouldn't be overwhelming, which tells you that there's something in the fragrance. And I've burned several from Bath & Body Works this first quarter that I felt the same way about in that neutrals line. So I'm looking at you, cardamom and vetiver, wild rose and suede, and then the last one that I did, the blue verbena and lime. Those were candles that were actually quite weak. And when you finally got them in a place where they were up to a 6 or up to a 7, it was way too heavy and it was way too overwhelming, even though in terms of the numbers and in terms of the strength in a very abstract way, like 6, 7 is really not that high. That's pretty much where every candle should be aiming at. So it's not just the strength per se, but it's like the profile of the fragrance makes a big difference. Yeah? Generally speaking, for a scented candle, you want a fragrance that can sit in the 7 realm, which is to say have a fairly, assertive presence in your room without being overwhelming. That's where you want to be. And if you've got a fragrance that is way too heavy at 7, you might want to think about dialing down or changing the profile of the fragrance across the board. It's too heavy. You need lighter notes. You need to diversify it. You've got to let some air into it. Whatever else it is, you want a fragrance that can give you a good presence in the room, but not be overwhelming. I guess personal fragrances are a little bit like that too. Yeah? You can have a personal fragrance that no matter how weak it is, it's too much. White diamonds. Something like that, right? Okay. That was my experience with Greenhouse Fern. It got up into the 7 realm and I walked back there and was like, oh no. I don't want this. I considered putting it in the guest bathroom, but frankly, it started acting up and I was almost relieved because I was just like, okay, I have an excuse now to not finish this candle because I just don't think I can. I don't know if I was just having a bad month, bad hormones, aloe fatigue from the other 2 candles. Maybe if I burned this at some other time, it wouldn't land the way that it did for me, but there was something about it that I didn't appreciate. And it may have been the conjunction of these particular florals that just pressed on my senses up in a very strange place, along with the green aloe, and I just was not having it. At any rate, there were people that liked it. I didn't think it burned particularly well. I don't really recommend it, but maybe I just got a bad performer randomly as an anomaly, and maybe I was just not in the place to receive that candle in the right way. So I feel badly about panning it across the board. Lavender and Vetiver performed somewhere in between the 2. In that for strength and throw, it had a better presence in the open concept certainly than Bergamot and Birch did. But it wasn't quite as loud as the Greenhouse Fern. So I would say that in the open concept, it kind of came in at a 4, something like that, And then in the bedroom, it gave pretty solidly a 6 to a 6.5. And you didn't have to wait 2 hours for it to build up to that point. It pretty much gave you a 6 or 6.5. This candle is nice, but for me, it's a little on the basic side, and it's just missing that je ne sais quoi element that would make it special. It's very aptly named. It's just lavender and it's just vetiver. It's one of those candles that would fit well in the neutrals collection because it's stripped down. There's not a whole lot else in it, which is great if you're a little bit of a purist. Yes, there may also be some amber in it, underneath the vetiver, but vetiver also kind of has a little bit of a perfumey element, so it may not even have that much of that. It's really just a very herbal lavender vetiver. And both of those are aggressive in terms of just their presence. You know, you kind of do have to be a strongly herbal person to like this candle. It's as simple as that. And if you're one of those people who likes herbs and frankly doesn't need the other stuff, doesn't need it to be chased with a lot of lavender, doesn't need it to be cut with sandalwood or a personal fragrance, doesn't need it to be a shower gel, you know, etc., then I think you're gonna like this candle. This is kind of the best of the like aromatherapy vibe kind of fragrance point, I would say. Yeah, there is kind of like a little bit of an aromatherapy vibe here, but it doesn't go like medicinal or harsh. So, which is quite impressive given the two notes that are playing here. The notes on the bottom, actually they do have sandalwood. Wild lavender, warm vetiver, and creamy sandalwood. I would say not a whole lot of sandalwood. Yeah, which is fine. I don't think that their sandalwood note is anything to write home about anyway. And I think it just would have muted really the loveliness of these two herbs going together. I love well, I don't love lavender, I'm sorry. I love vetiver. Lavender can go either way for me. A lot of lavender candles I don't love, and I definitely don't chase them. Yeah? But I'm always kind of pleasantly surprised by the ones that I like and that are often at Bath & Body Works. The pink lavender and espresso candle, Chef's Kiss, which means that the lavender marshmallow one, same situation. The lavender and vanilla candle that they have is lovely, lovely. That's an example of a candle that, while being even more basic than this one, has that je ne sais quoi element, has that specialness about it that you just can't even put your finger on. Yeah? I'm not sure that this one has that. So in that sense, it's a decent candle, but it's not as brilliant as it could be. And at the performance of like 6 in the back bedroom, That being said, a lavender and vetiver up at like an 8 range would probably not be great. But I think that the people who gravitate toward this kind of a candle are the ones who love these two. I think that this is one of those niche candles that if you don't like a stripped down, like aggressive herbal, this is not the candle for you. In which case, any kind of volume on this candle is going to be too much. Whereas the people who gravitate toward this candle, I think they could probably use more volume on it. They would be very happy with a 7, maybe even with an 8. That's my 2 cents. So I think this one could be turned up in volume and not have to worry about like losing some of your consumer audience, because I don't think that audience is going to be there to begin with, if that makes any sense. All right, so I recommend a lavender and vetiver with caveats, and the caveats are you need to be an herbal person. You need to be okay with vetiver, especially, which is even more of an acquired taste than lavender is. You need to be okay with a lavender that's fairly herbal rather than floral or sweet, and really kind of want that kind of stripped down aromatherapy vibe. And if that's you, you will like this candle, and you will probably want it to be a little bit stronger. That's what we've got. I like the Bergamot and Birch, and I would buy it again, but man, it needs to be dialed up. It really does. And so in that sense, I can't give it like 2 thumbs up or anything. I mean, it definitely needs more volume. I don't recommend Greenhouse Fern. It had the beach weather candle had the same thing for me of just getting up a little bit too high in the pollen count and then pressing on all of my senses. And that's kind of how this one did, with this like aloe note that kind of was a little brassy, and I just wasn't digging it, but beyond that, performed not well. So that was this mini collection. In terms of the collection, all of the like applause for the packaging and the marketing. Gorgeous, stunning. It's the sort of thing I want to see from Bath & Body Works. I mean, this is just beautiful, and it looks premium and expensive, and oh, it's really, really stunning. And it's just a label. It's just a label and some tinted glass, and it's magical. So I give full credit on all of that. In terms of the mini collection, though, in terms of performance, lower marks, lower than adequate, not quite adequate. In terms of the fragrances, I would say adequate. There were a couple of these that had real potential, and I definitely think that they do well. It's great that we got some herbals and we got some more subtle botanicals from them. I think that's fantastic, and I actually think that people are wanting that sort of thing a little bit more than they have in the past. And we're starting to see Bath and Body Works catalog kind of shifting to accommodate a lot of these fragrances that otherwise we would not see from them, that are not easily cross-marketed as shower gels and hand soaps. So in that sense, actually they would probably do well as hand soaps. Never mind. Just a different kind of hand soap than the one that they're usually peddle to us. Yeah, so I would say across the board it was decent and just about adequate when you add up all of those things. And I definitely think that the packaging is elevating the grade on this collection. There have been a lot of candles in this first quarter that have been adequate, and many of which had potential to be more than that, but unfortunately plagued with a lot of performance issues. And that's been the tune, that's been the song that has been played in this first quarter at Bath and Body Works. There is one mini collection that I think is a real standout this first quarter. And can you guess what it is? If you can't, stay tuned later in this week. I will catch you guys in the next one.